Peace and welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, we got a lot to talk about. It is the final day of Black History Month, and we're asking the question, what did you gain this month? So we'll have a conversation about that. Plus, I got to share with you some live streaming of what the White House is doing as they're discussing mental health among Black youth. And it's led by Policy Director Susan Rice and others officials within the White House. We'll have a conversation a little bit about that. And then later on, can we talk about what's going on in Haiti and in Nigeria and other places around the world? We're going to be having our international affairs. And we're also going to talk about broadening your horizons and how your traveling can add to your learning of your history. So we'll talk about all of that and, of course, get your comments. So stay with us. It's all happening on today's edition of The Culture here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. Folks, welcome to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for being a part of the conversation and tuning in this afternoon. Folks, we got a lot to talk about, so let's jump right in. First and foremost, happy Black History Month. This is the final day for Black History, the official celebration of Black History in 2023, even though we all know that Black History should be celebrated 365 days of the year. But this month, there has been a lot of conversation about what's been going on, of course, with Black America, from national issues to local issues, from everything from politics to health and well-being and economics. And here on the Black Star Network, we're going to continue to have those conversations. You can definitely bet that's going to happen. Be assured that we'll continue to have those discussions. But I wanted to start off the show today with talking to you just for a few moments, because I wanted to kind of get your take on what you have gained, what you have learned from Black History Month this year. Because we started off the month, unfortunately, with the unfortunate situation of Tyre Nichols. The month started off with a funeral of our brother Tyre Nichols, who was beaten by 5 Black police officers, and how that situation kind of kick-started the month in a way that I don't think a lot of folks truly understand, in the sense of it brought us into a state of mourning, into a place where we knew that we should be celebrating, but there was still a lot of work that needs to be done, especially in that particular case, as we talked about the fact that he was brutally beaten by 5 Black men. And, I remember having conversations at the beginning of the month. People say, I made the point that we're starting this month off in a state of mourning. And folks had told me on social media, well, we always have started Black History Month, unfortunately, in a state of mourning, because Black men, not only with Tyre Nichols, but with those who have been unnamed, they have lost their lives to the other Black men at the hands of other Black men. And it's a valid point. And I think that for us to take a moment to stop and to reflect on what has this month done. There has been even more conversations, not just about Black on Black violence, but there has been certainly some conversations about, making sure that our history stays preserved as we go through the month, and as we really look at the value, the importance, the great significance of teaching our children and teaching ourselves all that we should learn about Black history, right? So I'm thinking about all of these things, and I know this is a short month. We all know that, but more importantly, what do we do with it? What did we do with the time? Do we take a moment to reflect on this? The theme for this year's Black History celebration was Black resistance, and I remember we had a show, we had a conversation about, after the first week, do you feel like you were able to show some level of Black resistance? So I'm going to come back to that as well and ask you, do you feel like you were able to find some, to exemplify or to show some level of Black resistance in the final couple of weeks of the month after that conversation. But what did you gain? What did you learn? Let me start it off here, folks, and I would love for my crew to check in and tell me, what did you gain from this month so far? As we talk about Black history, we talk about here on this platform and in other spaces. Was there something that really stuck out to you, that resonated with you, where you felt like, you know what? I never knew that. I didn't understand that. And this is something that is truly, truly important. For me, folks, I am really, really starting to understand the significance of having Black spaces, having Black monuments, having Black spaces where our history can not just be told from an oratory standpoint, but actually can be seen. And it's interesting because one of our conversations that we plan to have today is with an award-winning travel consultant, Martinique Lewis, who is going to talk to us about, not just traveling to just go to the beach, but traveling to learn, traveling to go deeper inside of who you are, traveling to learn about your heritage, your lineage, and all of those things, the importance of that, especially for Black people. So for me, it's like those reminders, those places are important, right? Looking at, okay, where are the places to feel the energy of a certain space, of a space where our people have convened, to feel the energy of a place where our people, whether it's a mural, whether it's a monument, whether it's a park, to be in those places, to be in that space is really, really important, especially if you live in a major city, if I'm in a major city. And we oftentimes don't have the time to go to those other places, like, going to the museum or just learning about that part of our history, because again, oratory is absolutely great. We have griots in our culture, but to go to a physical place where we can take our children, our grandchildren, nieces and nephews, where we could take some young person from the community and have them to really take in the energy of that space. I'm starting to see that more and more, and more starting to understand the importance of it, right? And more, here's the other thing, then we're going to get to you, crew. Not only is it just the physical space, but also learning. Like, I think the thing about Black history for me has been to make sure that I am doing my due diligence to learn something new about my people and my history that I have never learned before. And I know that with Nira and I, we talk about this all the time, learning about those people, learning about who did what, those contributions. I mean, look, our history is so rich. It's so diverse. It's so much that, you can't just take it all in 28 days. So learning is definitely something. I'm learning more about myself. I'm learning more about my people. I'm learning more about, and most importantly, the connection, the link that I play in this chain called being a part of a great people of Black people in America. It's very, very important. So that's just some of the things that have stuck out in my mind over these past couple of weeks. But I would love to hear what you got to say. What have you learned? What have you gained in this year's Black History celebration? All right, let's go to my man, Real Brooklyn, checking in from the crew. As always, Real Brooklyn, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much, brother, for checking in. You say, look, I have learned that we have a very long way to go. Not only is race relation a major topic, but holding ourselves accountable is a large part of the discussion regarding Black history. I want to do this. Can I do this to you, Real Brooklyn? That is huge, bro. That is absolutely huge. And you know what? I appreciate you for saying that because, we have made great strides, right? We have made great gains. We know that, we talk about it. Sometimes, and I think, Real Brooklyn, you would appreciate what I'm about to say. Sometimes we just stop there. We stop at the past progress, the past accomplishments and achievements, and then we kind of try to ride that out until, this. And what I love about what you just said, Real Brooklyn, is that at the end of the day, it's still an ongoing forward path, forward motion. none of this, our liberation as a people will not be, it cannot happen until there is consistency of action. I'm going to say that again, folks. Our liberation as a people cannot happen until there is consistency in action. We have to be consistent. And that ongoing, just the awareness, like, yep, we did A, we did B, we were able to accomplish this and accomplish that. But just to keep in mind, we have a long way to go. And it's not to be a downer, to rain on somebody's parade. You celebrate the small wins, but at the end of the day, you also keep in mind, like, don't let up off the gas. Real Brooklyn, appreciate you, bro. Let's go to more crew members are checking in. I appreciate y'all. Mimi D 726, you said, I've learned that I want to go deeper into my people, Black nationalism, perhaps. Facts. Okay. I'm feeling that. I'm feeling same way. You know what I mean? Like, you get this thirst. If nothing else, Black History Month should open up your eyes to at least want to learn a little bit more. Like, you should not come out of this month the same way you went into the month, right? And I think that if we add a more of a, what's the word I'm looking for, Mimi? It's like a spiritual journey, but then there's also like this journey, this inward journey, right? Because you as we get older and we see things that are happening around us, we start to like, so you got to hold on to something. And that's the other part, like learning how to hold on to the great history. And I think, Mimi, you are saying the same thing I'm saying, is that, this is not a shade on anybody else, but you just want to feel more rooted in who you are. So I truly appreciate you saying that. My sister Janelle, you checked in and said, good afternoon, everyone. This has been a very heavy duty month. It's as if now I'm not sure what the WS stand for, Janelle. You're going to have to school me on that. Call us out on this year's theme, Black resistance in every arena. Okay, awesome. It has been a heavy duty month. This is celebratory, but it has been a somber mode. So I definitely appreciate that for you recognizing that. And you gotta let me know what DS. Y'all be putting some initials in the chat. I'll be like, what? Not trying to be funny. I'm like, oh, I really want to know the lingo, the language. Janelle, thank you so much. Shalinda, checking in. You said this year I've learned that the more melanated people share their experience in this world, the more pushback we will get from those who want us to be silenced. I'm also learning that we must unite. Absolutely. Oh, and WS stands for white supremacy. Okay, got you. I'm feeling it. Got you. I appreciate that. Thank you, Keenan. So, Shalinda, you made that point of, the more that we share that our experience in this world, the more pushback we get from those who want us to be silenced. Facts. Again, that is the fuel, folks. That's the gas to keep us moving, right? And I'm learning, even in just in my personal life, to not be quiet, to be very explicit about who I am and what I want out of life, right? And as you get older, after you have a few experiences, y'all probably feel the same way too. That's why I think, Shalinda, you probably appreciate this. As you get older, like I remember seeing adults when I was younger, and adults used to be like my grandmother. She cut no corners about who she was and what she wanted out of life. And the same thing now that my father, he the same way. He don't cut no corners, man. Sometimes he don't think about your feelings or nothing, right? And I used to say to myself, like, damn, why do older people always act like that? Now I start to understand that with life, you have to be very clear, explicit about who you are, what you want, because that is a way to cut through all the BS of other people. So I am right there with you. When people want to infringe upon your ability to express yourself, when people want to keep you quiet, that's a problem. That's a problem. The ability to express yourself the way you believe you see fit, the way you believe the Creator has made you to be, the ability to speak, that is one of the most sacred rights of any human being. The ability to express yourself, right? When we talk about freedom of speech, it's not just of the spoken word, but it's also of the personal expression of yourself. You cannot, if you allow people to infringe or impose their view of your themselves on your expression, that is debilitating. that diminishes the light that you have. And we can't allow that anymore. So I'm right there with you, Celinda. Diane Avery checked in. You said Black history must be taught daily, period. There we go. There we go. Absolutely. Absolutely. Look, folks, I got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, we're going to continue to talk about what did you gain and what did you learn from this year's Black History Month celebration? And more importantly, how do we move forward? That's going to be the next part of the conversation. Like, how do we move forward from this? We know all the issues. We know all of the stuff that's happening, the challenges, the triumphs, the trials. We know all about these things. But personally, I want us to just kind of just center in on who we are. Personally, how do you plan to move forward? Stay tuned. That conversation is up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is roland@rolandsmartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to the conversation. Welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. All right, folks, we've been talking about Black History Month, and more importantly, talking about what did we gain personally? What did you personally gain this year? And this has been an ongoing conversation about the history. And I just wanted to take a few minutes to just, have a moment of reflection. Because I feel like we sometimes just kind of skirt over and just kind of, glaze over the moment, right? This is the last day of the month where the whole country, quote unquote, is going to be focused on Black History Month. Whether you're in the political space or the arts and entertainment space, sports, whatever the professional, whatever the industry is, and so for us, taking the time to just say, let me think about what it is that I've learned. What did I gain from this month is I think is absolutely essential and necessary that we understand that this celebration is not just a tradition, but it's an opportunity for us to become empowered and, more importantly, to become reactivated in understanding, in our love, and in the struggle of our people. That's what it means to me. That over these next 30 days is supposed to kind of get us refocused on what's really important, which is the collective, which is the accomplishments, the achievements, the things that we've been blessed to do as a people. How do we continue to use that momentum to move further along? All right, let me take a couple of more comments from my crew here, and then we'll go to the next conversation. My sister, Corinna, checked in. Corinna, who's been on the show, fantastic contributor here. You said, I have continued to learn how desperately we are collectively lacking the knowledge of our history and knowledge of the law, economics, and politics, which is imperative to us thriving in society. Now, I know Corinna, our sister Corinna, she is in school looking to be the next great Black lawyer for our people to talk about those causes, especially in the courtroom. So I agree with you. I wholeheartedly agree with you. This is a huge gap, right? Like, again, going back to the fact that a lot of us tend to and not us, but some of us tend to stay in the past. We do have to look forward. We do have to say, okay, what is the progress is going to be? And the gaps are our ability to understand the law. This is something Brother Michael and Hotep often talk about, but Corinna, you're bringing it up, looking at the law, looking at the economics, looking at politics, looking at power, and how the systems rather, that we are all a part of, how these systems really work, and how these systems really keep us in a state where we don't know, or it diminishes our willingness to know. I hope I'm making sense to some folks. So understanding all of these systems, the system of law, economics, politics, health and welfare, health and well-being, like these are systems. As much as these are valuable and important elements of our lives, that speaks to every part of the human being, right? They have now created systems for every part. And so sometimes in the midst of living life, we don't get a chance to understand how each of these systems impact us, how their policies impact us, how their the culture of these systems impact us, to the point where we may feel like we're not who we are created to be, like we're not ourselves, because we have become products of a system that has made us other than ourselves. I hope y'all following me on this thing, right? So Corinna, you're bringing up an excellent point, and I think that is part of the reason why we need to have these conversations. My sister, Corinna, thank you so much, sis. Nisa, 1971, you said, I learned that Black farmers were putting up their land for bail bonds during the civil rights movement. Civil rights leaders got free and continued their work, but then they came after the farmers. The plight of the Black farmer, something that I would like to, and I know that from this vantage point on this platform, we don't talk about it enough, but the plight of the Black farmer is very, very real. And look, folks, it's very simple. If we can't talk about land, the distribution of food, the production of food, if we're not talking about that, we're not talking about nation building. Any group of people that understand, any civilized people, right? They understand that in order for you to make any type of gains, real progress, land is important. Land is a part of the conversation. That's why historically that whole idea of 40 acres and a mule sounded good. You're going to give me 40 acres and a mule as a result of my experience of being a part of the transatlantic slave trade. This is your quote unquote, your form of reparations, 40 acres and a mule. That's huge. That's big. That's always been that was a quote unquote good deal. 40 acres. I mean, but we never got that. It was promised to us, but we do have to keep our eyes on the land. It's a great point. Thank you so much, Nisa. Tiana, you said, I've learned that there were more slave revolts that we don't talk about. Facts. I like that. I think you're absolutely right, Tiana. I think, and we hear about all of the different ones like Nat Turner and the other ones, but you're right. And why is this important? Here's why this is important. Because for me, Tiana, when I learn about those revolts and those rebellions, it gives me a sense of pride to know that our people just didn't submit, that we fought and we continue to fight, right? And so That's who we are. We are fighters. And to some of us who may believe, and I'm just saying, I think there's a small minority of Black folks who don't think that we have put up enough fight for us to be in this condition that we find ourselves in today. I disagree. We have fought every step of the way for every inch of progress, and we have fought to try to hold on to every little gain. Huge. Thank you so much for bringing that up. And then Young Sikh, you checked in and said you read The Three Mothers, MLK, Malcolm, Baldwin's mom, learned about their influence and life, didn't know MLK's mom was shot to death in the church. Yeah. Young Sikh, I haven't read that book. So, I would love to get some more information about that book, because that sounds like a fantastic book. But it sounds like it highlights the mother of Dr. King, Malcolm X, and James Baldwin. And I'm glad that you read that book, bro. I'm really, really excited that you really read that and learned about that, and learned about where these men, where did they get their strength? Where did they get their resolve? Where did they get their resiliency? And more importantly, where did they find their power? Because mom gives us the power. Dads give us power too. And a lot of these men were influenced by their dads. I know for Malcolm X, influenced by their dads. So when we always have the conversation about who's the next Malcolm Martin, who's the next person, this person and that person, you really got to start the conversation with which group of parents are being, which parents are cultivating and teaching and empowering their sons to think and to do, empowering their sons and their daughters to think and do and take us to the next level, because it starts at home. I think it starts at home, and we know that. And so that means that those of us who are blessed to have children in the household, we have a huge responsibility. Y'all want to know how we change the condition of our people? How do we get from an oppressive state into a state of freedom? Teach the babies. Teach the babies freedom. And guess what? They will never be constricted. They will never be restricted, or constrained. They will understand the plight. They will understand the struggle, and they will take us to the next step of this liberation and freedom, justice, and equality. All right, my man Chris Big, check it in, and Young C, thank you. You said the federal government has enough land to give us 40 acres, and it could be done by executive order, right? But you know what, Chris, you and I know, bro. Political will. It's not about if it's the right thing to do. We know it's the right thing to do. Reparations is the right thing to do. A lot of things are the right thing to do. But will you do it? That's the thing. Will you do what is right? And that is the conversation. That is the big question that's always confronting America. Will you do what is right by the people? All right, we got to take another quick pause. When we come forward, more conversation. Stay with us. We got a lot to cover in this in today's episode of The Culture, so stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. you get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. I wanted to just bring your attention to something that is happening right now at the White House, where as we can continue to celebrate the final day of Black History Month, they're having a conversation talking about ways to address the mental health crisis that are facing Black youth. Now, this is including Policy Director Susan Rice and others. Kamala Harris, the Vice President, of course, is on hand to talk a little bit about this issue. But I thought it was interesting enough that I said, well, we need to include this in today's show, at least to make a mention of it. And folks, you can go to whitehouse.gov where you can find all the latest news and information about all of the efforts from the White House. You can also check out their YouTube page. But I thought that this was worthy of us to bring to the forefront as we're having this conversation. So I wanted to share with you just a little bit of what was discussed and what has been discussed as the White House hosts this forum about mental health for Black youth. Take a look.
As the president shared during his State of the Union address, we have to do more to tackle our mental health crisis, especially for our children and young people. Every day, I see how mental health challenges, often exacerbated by social media and other factors, are a force multiplier across so many of our most pressing challenges as a nation, compounding issues such as our labor shortage, homelessness, and criminal justice. And I also see this as the mother of two young adults. This crisis is increasingly acute among young Black men. Nearly 40% of Black teenagers say they struggle with persistent feelings of sadness or hopelessness. And 22% of Black teenagers reported seriously considering suicide. In 2019, 8.5% of Black high school students attempted suicide, while 6.4% of white students did. And in 2018, 9% of Black men reported feeling sad, while 6.9% of white men reported the same. Suicide rates among Black Americans between the ages of 10 and 24 years old have increased 36% over the past 3 years. As compared with white Americans, half as many Black Americans who need mental health treatment get such treatment, according to the National Institutes of Health. We know that young Black men face structural racism, which results in trauma that follows them throughout their lives. And we know that getting help can be more challenging for men compared to women. So what are we doing? We're building a system with enough capacity and the right competencies to treat everyone. We're connecting people to the culturally competent and trauma-informed services that they need by tackling high costs and other barriers. We're creating environments that support mental health and well-being in school or online. We're making help more accessible and confidential by enabling you to dial or text 988, the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Thanks to these efforts by the Biden administration, now schools are able to hire more counselors, more nurses, and social workers, and more underserved young Americans can access mental health providers. More dedicated staff are answering the phones at crisis call centers. But this is just the beginning, and obviously it's not nearly enough. We have a lot to learn from our young people. And so that's why I am so thrilled to be at this roundtable today with my colleague and friend, Surgeon General Dr. Vivek Murthy, and our participants, Naheem Banks, Miles Noble, and Dr. Arthur Evans of the American Psychological Association. I'll now hand it off to the Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ambassador Rice. And it has been wonderful to have you as a friend and partner in these efforts to address mental health. I'm also so glad that we are here today to talk about mental health and specifically about mental health and young Black men. You know, I was thinking back to my own personal experiences with mental health. As a child growing up, recognizing that I was different from a lot of the folks around me, recognizing that my skin color was different, my parents' cultural background was different. So much was different in my life that made me feel like I didn't quite fit in. And I struggled with my mental health during that time, but I also didn't tell anybody about it. My parents loved me, but I never told them. My sister loved me, I never told her. And it's because I felt a sense of shame, a shame that too many people feel when it comes to their mental health and well-being. And that's part of what we're trying to change. You know, that shame persisted for a long time. Years later, I still remember being at the dining table as a high school student doing my homework on a Sunday when the phone rang, and picking up that phone and learning that my uncle had taken his own life in just a few miles away from us in a home he lived in. And I didn't know how to process that. But I also, in the days that followed, I saw how my family didn't really know how to process that. We didn't know how to talk about it with others. We felt a sense of guilt and shame. Again, a sense of shame that too many families feel who are dealing with suicide. You know, it's taken us a long time to recognize as a country that mental health is health, that it's no less important than our physical health. And it's something we should be able to talk about as openly and as honestly as we would talk about a broken ankle or a sprained wrist. And we've got some ground to cover there because mental health at the end of the day is not just one thing on the side for us to worry about. It is our fuel that allows us to show up in the world for our family, at work, at school. And if our fuel tank is low, if our mental health is suffering, then we can't show up in the way we want to in the world. The fact that so many people are struggling with their mental health right now, and it really is, unfortunately, a monumental struggle for many communities. This puts not just our health, but also our economies and our communities at risk. And you know, this is particularly true in the Black community, where sadly, in the last few years, we've seen a 36% increase in the suicide rate among young Black people. We've also seen that young Black men are more likely to die by suicide than Black women, and they're much less likely to ask for help than their white counterparts. This is part of what we've got to change. You know, all this is happening against a backdrop of a broader youth mental health crisis, where the strain, of and stresses really of COVID-19, of violence in communities, particularly gun violence, where the adverse impacts of racism and systemic discrimination, and as well as where the adverse impacts of technology at times, particularly social media, have really conspired and come together to really hurt the mental health and well-being of young people in America. And that's why we've got to take action. It's why we've got to make sure that the future is different than the past. This is about fundamentally changing this status quo. And to do that, we want to build a movement around mental health, one that is firmly centered around the needs of young people and that has them at the table. And that's why I'm really grateful that President Biden, Vice President Harris, and Ambassador Rice and others, in the administration have really made this a priority, because we all recognize that without our mental health, we can't be who we need to be. We can't show up as our best selves. So I'm grateful to have all of you here. As Ambassador Rice mentioned, for this conversation, we do have Dr. Evans with us. Arthur Evans is the CEO and Executive Vice President of the American Psychological Association, the leading scientific and professional organization representing psychology in the United States. Thank you, Dr. Evans, for being here to help us put the problem in context and also focus on solutions. I'm also grateful that we're joined by two brave, thoughtful, young men who are going to share some of their own wisdom and experiences with us. Miles Noble, a junior at Washington Liberty High School in Arlington, Virginia, and an aspiring professional soccer player. I only lasted a year in junior soccer, so you've got my admiration. And also Naheem Banks, who's a Los Angeles native, a senior at Howard University, where he's currently the chair of the Howard Student Association Senate. Thank you all so much again for joining us today. I'm going to kick off our questions with a question to Naheem. And Naheem, we're obviously here to talk about mental health. And I want you to just at a personal level, just tell us a little bit about what shaped how you thought about mental health when you were growing up. And were there people you talked to about mental health? Were there TV shows or other cultural factors that influenced how you thought about mental health? Tell us a little bit about how that was shaped.
Yeah, of course. I think a large part of my experience with mental health was really through my family and my immediate family and our dynamic. As you know, many of you all on the stage know, I think in Black communities in particular, the concept of mental health or even receiving, therapy sessions or receiving any kind of help for your mental health has been kind of stigmatized. So for me, it was I came into this idea of mental health as something that was an issue or something that was a problem with me. And it's so funny because my dad always would walk around and he would see me doing work at the table during the pandemic, and he always said that it reminded him of like a painting of someone holding the world on their shoulders. So confiding in my twin sister, confiding in my older brother, confiding in my mother really showed me that I didn't have to just trauma dump on them all the time, but they actually encouraged me to get help, to go to therapy, to receive sessions, and for me to be my best self, because I wasn't able. And to your point, you're not able to be your best self when your mental health is in jeopardy. In order for me to be the best student, in order for me to be the best son, the best brother, the best worker, the best law school applicant, I'm gonna have to actually be at my best. And going to therapy sessions, finding a person of color that was young, that understood issues regarding relationships, issues regarding race, issues regarding school life and friendships really helped me to become not just, a better person in general, but a better person in every aspect of my life, whether it was with my family, with my friends, or even in my work, school balance, school life environment.
Folks, as you can see, that was a White House conversation, a live stream conversation talking about mental health among young Black males. And it's a conversation that folks, you can definitely check out. Go to whitehouse.gov if you want to see the complete discussion. But we wanted to just share that with you because, again, we wanted to let you know that this type of discussion is happening on a national basis. And as you can hear from that brother Naheem, about his personal journey of finding some level of balance and to get them care and more importantly, to have a safe space, that it's important, that this is very, very important. So again, folks, I know that a lot of you are very interested in seeing or knowing what is the White House doing to address the mental health issue? What is happening with the Biden-Harris administration, as it relates to Black men and Black boys? And so this is a chance for you to learn more about what's going on from the federal level and how it will impact the states. And I'm so happy that we were able to play just a little bit of that. Look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, we're going to switch gears. Let's talk about traveling, broadening your horizons and your history. So we'll have that conversation with award-winning travel consultant Martinique Lewis up next. So stay with us. That conversation is going to happen in a few moments right here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about Blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind $100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show here on the Culture on the Black Star Network. Our next conversation is with a sister that is taking history and travel to the next level. I'm talking about an award-winning travel consultant who is doing her part to make sure that we can all broaden our horizons and understanding our history. So I'm so very happy to have my sister Martinique Lewis joining us today as we have this conversation about traveling and talking about learning history and her new National Geographic documentary that talks about traveling while Black. So we're happy to have Martinique join us. Martinique, welcome to the Culture here on the Black Star Network. How are you this afternoon?
I am great. How are you? And thank you for having me.
Absolutely. You're welcome. You're welcome. And I'm so happy to hear that you are great. All right. So let me start here, Martinique, because what you do is it's a lot of intersection. It's an intersection of our desire to wanting to get out to see the world. It's an intersection of history. It's an intersection of personal growth and development. There are a lot of layers to the work that you do. You are an award-winning travel consultant. And I'm going to share with people throughout this conversation. You actually have like 4 or 5 different hats that you get.
Oh my gosh, I have so many. I have so many always. People are like, so what you do? I'm like, everything. I do everything. I do everything.
All right. So first and foremost, for those who, and congratulations on being an award-winning travel consultant. Talk to us a little bit about that work. What does that entail?
Right. So as a diversity and travel consultant, it's actually a lane that I created for myself. And it was to make sure that there is representation within the travel space, because for the longest time as a Black traveler, I never saw myself reflected. And I can remember being on a plane to a place in the Caribbean, and the in-flight entertainment and the in-flight magazines all reflected white people. And I was like, everybody on this plane is Black and we're all going to the Caribbean. Why don't I see myself reflected ever? And so I started to speak out about those issues happening within the travel space. And I started speaking out about how much Black people spend, and the simple fact that we spend so much and we inject so much into the travel industry. For that reason alone, we should see ourselves reflected in travel ads and promotions. But not only that, Black travelers are 70% more likely to visit destinations and spend their money with brands where they see themselves reflected. As travelers, we're going on somebody's Instagram. We want to see, what your destination looks like, and we want to see ourselves reflected. More than likely, if we see ourselves reflected, then we know that you want us there. So as a diversity and travel consultant, I help help the travel industry understand Black travel preferences. I help them understand what Black travelers are doing so that they can make sure they are marketing and speaking to us.
So and I'm so happy, and we got some information up from your site.
Yeah.
Diversity and Travel Consultant, changing the face of tourism forever.
Yeah.
And you know what? I love having guests like you on, Martinique, because guess what? I did not know, we don't know about the challenges. And it's so crazy that even in 2023, we're still breaking barriers. Like you still have to have a person like you to go into the travel industry to say, you know what? Black travel, Black people travel too, right? So why aren't we represented? Like, for you as a person that's doing this work, does that shock you? Before you even started to do this work, were you like completely shocked that a lot of these travel agencies and transportation companies just don't cater to Black travelers?
I wasn't shocked. And then I was shocked because after I was giving them the numbers, you still weren't doing anything about it. You know what I mean? So, of course, in 2020, with the unfortunate passing of, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery, after that, everybody wants to knock down your door. And it's like, but I was talking to you about this before 2020, and you should have got me then, because back then I was free, and now I'm going to charge you triple so that you understand how to market to Black people, right? So I'm like, yeah, you should have got me when I was free, but they ignored my phone calls. They wouldn't, answer my emails. We'd be at travel conferences. They would see me walk and turn around and go the other way. And now I'm highly sought out to be able to help them understand this community, because we are out here. And the thing about the Black travel movement is it's forever expanding. It's forever growing. People ask me all the time, well, what did you notice? What were the trends last year? And I was like, the trend is always that the Black people are going to set the trend. So many people are going to Jordan. So many people are going to Salvador. Why? Because Black travelers are in those spaces, and people weren't used to seeing people there until we started to come out and actually go. And now those places are seeing, their numbers go up tremendously. Why? Because Black travelers are there. So all of these things, really, really make a difference in terms of what we're doing and how we're setting precedent for travelers everywhere else.
So talk to us.
Price is not today's price. Yesterday's price.
It's not though.
Today's
it's
price.
Not, though.
This is what happens. This is what happens with my show.
I love it.
King Keenan, thank you, sir. I needed that.
I love it.
Hey, you know what? Yesterday's price. Now we're going to charge you triple.
Triple. Should have got me when I was cheap.
Not one time. We ain't charging you. Well, not twice. Not double. We're going to charge you triple. Because you rejected me like Jesus thrice.
We'll start using that one, okay? Really?
So talk to us. I love the fact that there is a Black travel movement, right?
Yeah.
And so what have been some of the common challenges that you've seen? Is it price gouging? Is it that Black travelers, when we go to places, that we're not getting the best accommodations from hotel and amenities, or is it what are some of the big challenges facing Black travelers today?
There's not big challenges, to be honest. The biggest challenge is, still being safe. But I would say that's the only thing. People want to know where they can go and still feel safe. And especially within America, a lot of people are like, oh, well, where's the most dangerous place for African Americans to travel? And I'm like, right here at home, right? So I just think the biggest thing right now is still safety. We want to make sure that we're welcome to places, regardless if it's in America or abroad. And all of that is extremely important.
So that's I'm so happy that you said that, because I've been thinking about this growing trend that I have seen among Black women. I know that a lot of y'all love to travel, like everywhere. Black women love to travel. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, that's cool. What's the trend that I'm seeing, Martinique, is I'm seeing a lot of Black women traveling by themselves.
Absolutely.
And I'm thinking to myself, I get it. This could be a very spiritual journey. It could be a rewarding journey, but I'm just keep thinking about the safety of it. Like, you're going into places that are known, for example, if you're going to Mexico, if you're going to some parts of the Caribbean. I remember years ago, I traveled down to an island, and they had at the time there was this young white woman who was just kidnapped and murdered off the same island, Martinique. And I was traveling, and I was like, and it was like still a big conversation. She was from America. She went down to the island, and it was still a big conversation where I had talked to one of the local guys, and he was an older white man. He was like, yeah, her body is probably in the ocean at this point. Like, it was just like, but she had gotten friendly with some of the local men. And then it's like they never recovered this young lady, right? So I thought to myself, so I'm always thinking about safety, like especially for a lot of sisters. What is this trend about, and how do we have a conversation about that part?
Well, one thing about Black travelers is we're always going to have our head on the swivel. So we're not going to go and do things where we don't feel comfortable doing it. And I think the problem with that young lady is she went to, unfortunately, meet up with some people that she didn't know, and it was based off of, I think I remember the story, but it was based off of money and things like that. So for Black female travelers, we are solo travelers for the simple fact that we don't need anybody else for us to go and explore more. And it is a trend that people will continue to see. It is a forever growing, community. But additionally, we make sure that there are also Black women travel groups, or there are also groups that are on the ground to the places that we want to go to so that we are safe. For example, Amsterdam Black Women is a great resource. There's also Morenas España, and this is a group that's in Spain for Black women to connect with each other, because so many Black women are now not only becoming solo, female travelers, but Black expats. So there are these groups that are strategically put in place so that there aren't any issues like that. But because Black women are saying this is our time now, we have the disposable income, we're getting married later, we're having kids later, our kids are grown, we are packing our stuff and we're going. It is something that you will continue to see grow. And it is also another thing that a lot of these brands are specifically targeting solo female Black travelers, because they know that we'll spend the money to go. So it is if any brands are listening today, it is a very lucrative market. And these are women from the age of 35 to 55 who are ready to spend and who have the money to do it.
Absolutely. Big shout out to my crew member, Mimi. She said Natalie Holloway. That is the young lady's name.
Okay.
Natalie Holloway, that I'm thinking. Mimi, thank you so much. That's why I love my crew. You know what I'm saying, Martinique? They always keep me on point. Thank you so much, Mimi. So if they got the disposable income and all of those things, then at the end of the day, it's like y'all decide to do the traveling. All right, talk to us a little bit about, is there a proper way to travel? Because here's why I'm asking. I have been with family members, Martinique. And if I'm going on vacation, leave me the hell alone. Leave me alone. If I want to spend a day in bed in the hotel, I want to spend a day in bed in the hotel. Like I've gone with some people, and it's like, as soon as you get there, okay, let's pull out this itinerary. Bro, I'm not doing all of this. I'm not making my vacation like my normal day. And no, I'm not doing it. So what's your take on how should people travel? Because some people take it to the max where they have to plan everything, go everywhere, see every site within a 48-hour period. Okay, we'll eat at lunch. We'll stop by for lunch for an hour and a half type of thing. Versus, we'll play it by ear. Is there a proper way to vacation and to travel?
No. But what I tell people all the time is you need to know who you're traveling with so that you're not annoyed, so that you're not irritated. There's certain friends I can't go nowhere with because I'm like, no, for one, I'm opposite from you. I want to get out there and go. I hate to even be in my hotel room, right? But I know the friends who will spend the money to just sit there in their hotel room. And that's great, but that don't work for me, right? And so I love traveling with my mom because my mom is an adventurer just like me, literally. I love traveling with my sister because my sister is an adventurer also. My sister wants to go and try every single food and drink every little piece of wine that she could get her hands on.
She go hard.
Exactly. But I can't travel with those people who don't want to go. And it's not that they're not good travelers. They just prefer something different. So I always will say, know who you're traveling with because there are different types of travelers.
And then don't get me wrong, I'm not a boring person, Martinique. I'm really not.
You just tired. You just tired. You want to relax.
Sis.
I get it. I get it. Trust me, I get it.
Now, if I'm going to an island, if I'm going to the Caribbean, if I'm going to the space like that, like, no, let's drive around. But, you know, like that first, as soon as the plane touched down, don't mean we off to the races. It's like, nah. I remember traveling to Vegas one time. It was like 2 a.m. It's like 110, 15 degrees outside. People walking around. It was 2 a.m. It was people all everywhere, like it's New York City. Yeah. And I'm like, why are these people in the house? What?
You just want to be out and about. Yeah.
Want to be hanging out and all that stuff. Okay, so that's great. Look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, now, Martinique, you have taken your travel talents to the big screen. And you're part of a new documentary put out by National Geographic. I want to talk about that. Plus, we got my crew that got some questions, and so we'll have you an opportunity for you to address that as well. So stay with us, folks. We got a lot to talk about as we're talking about broadening your horizons with award-winning travel consultant Martinique Lewis. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We've been talking to award-winning travel consultant Martinique Lewis to give us her insight about the travel industry, the Black travel movement, and so much more as it relates to broadening your horizons. And I want you to join us in the conversation. Post your comments, share your questions and your thoughts, put it in the chat as we're streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, blackstarnetwork.com, and, of course, on Amazon News. Now, Martinique, you're doing the due diligence of bringing Black folks into the travel experience, or making a space rather for Black folks to be seen as travel experience. Now, you talked about the piece around George Floyd, and you're talking about, making sure that these travel companies and airlines and everybody know that Black travelers are a regular, consistent a block of people who are fueling the travel industry.
Right.
Who are fueling the travel industry. You have your National Geographic show. Talk to us a little. Look at your face light up like a Christmas tree. So look, I'm in Los Angeles, and I remember just like a couple of days ago, I saw the poster in LA, and I was like, oh snap! Here we go! I'm gonna be talking to her on the show.
You are. I love it. I love it. Thank you. Thank you so much for the enthusiasm. And yes, I do smile because it's still a little bit surreal, you know. And like I tell people, as Black people, you know, being a Black person on National Geographic is not really seen. You know, right now we have critter fixers that are up there, but when it comes to Black travel, there has not been significantly a lot of Black people on TV, and especially not on the Nat Geo channel. So I am very, very proud of that. And like I tell people all the time, you know, my introduction to Black people on Nat Geo was we were naked, you know, running through the jungle, and that was my introduction to Black people on the Nat Geo channel. So for me, a girl from Oakland, California, to be able to have this documentary about what my passion and my life's work is, which is Black travel, I am so excited about that. So if you guys have not seen it, like they just put up there, it's called Black Travel Across America.
Put it back up there, Keenan, so people can see. There it is. Bing bong.
It is an ode to all of those who came before us and how they traveled up and down the highways between 1936 and 1966, which I like to refer to as the Green Book era, because the Negro Motorist Green Book was in circulation. So we basically go to 3 different cities and we see what used to be there and how we had these thriving communities. And then we pay homage to those people by showing what's there now and who's continuing on the legacy. So I am extremely excited about it. I can't wait for people to watch it who haven't watched it yet. And I do want to know people's feedback, because what I'm learning from the feedback now is that people are learning so much. And like I said, these are things that I know, but I'm able to now be able to share that with the rest of the world through platforms like Nat Geo. And it's also streaming right now on Hulu and Disney Plus. So super grateful to have the opportunity to just talk about what I'm passionate about.
All right, so I got a couple of questions. One is this going to be the beginning of something very special with your relationship with Nat Geo, to the point where they're like, you know what, Martinique, we want you to either do something regular, a regular show to talk about traveling, or, you know, we want you to, as you travel into these important spaces for Black people, that we want to learn some history. Is that in the works?
So from your mouth to God's ears, everybody's mouth to God's ears, right? Because so many people have watching and said, okay, where's episode 2?
Right.
You know, everybody wants more, including myself, and Nat Geo knows. They are very, very aware. And what I think happens is, you know, a lot of times brands are a little bit afraid, you know, to put something new out there to see how the crowd is going to react. But people have really, as I say, banged with me, or people have really supported this project. So Nat Geo is definitely in the works of figuring it all out and what is going to happen. But regardless if anything happens or not, I was always doing this work on social media regardless, and that's how they found me, because I love to share Black travel history and share Black travel stories. So regardless if you guys ever see me on Nat Geo again, you will always see me sharing our stories through my social media platforms. But it would be beautiful to have a series, because even after you watch this, to be able to cram so many stories in 47 minutes, you know, it leaves so much more room for more information. And there's so many other cities that have stories like the ones that we're sharing that I would love to be able to continue to share. So yes, and if you guys like the show, make sure you go on social media, you tag at Nat Geo and you tag at Nat Geo TV, and you let them know we want to see more of this.
Absolutely. I wanted to speak on that part about the, you know, the Green Book, the Black Motorist Guide, Green Book Guide, which speaks to those spaces. And that's something I started the show off with today, is that I'm learning to appreciate and value those places, monuments, statues, those spaces where Black folks can feel the energy of our ancestors, that we can go in and just take a moment of reflection, because we need those. I mean, yes, oratory's history is great. We know that. We got the oral history. Right. But to be in a part of the physical history, I think it just kind of takes us up a few more notches, because you're there, you feel it. Talk to us a little bit about that, because there has been conversation, and there was one of my producers sent me an article earlier today. He talked about in a lot of cities across America, Black statues, Black spaces are being destroyed because of urban renewal, because of a lot of different reasons, right? But you're not going to go, if you go into some of these cities, like if you might go to a city in the South, say Montgomery, and say, okay, where are the big spots for the civil rights movement? You might not be able to find them because a lot of these cities are destroying these spaces, right? For quote unquote other issues, you know, interest in other people and all of those things. So give me your take on this. Like, how do we preserve these spaces that so that way we don't find ourselves just relating to history and we can't even take our children to see what history looks like?
Exactly. So working in the travel and tourism space, this is another thing that I do from destination to destination. Help destinations understand how to preserve that history because it's on a government level, right? None of those things can be taken down if it's protected by the government, and that means that local jurisdiction. And unless it's, you know, protected by some type of society, historical society, but we are the ones who will help preserve our own history. And this is why this documentary is so important, because if we don't tell our stories, nobody else will. There are plenty of places in Atlanta, you know, where there are, you know, there are housing communities built on top of Black graveyards. And it's like, who wrote off on this? You know what I mean? Like these are people's family members, and now people are living on top of them. And so we have to, like I said, continue to do that. We have to continue to push for the historical landmarks. We have to continue to say, no, you're not knocking this down to build up new developments, because we know gentrification is very much so real. And we know that they don't necessarily care about our narratives, but that's why we have to come in as a community. That's why you have to elect your community officials and speak out about those things. But I always say thank God for the Black press, because the Black press will guide us into these spaces that we need to help preserve, because they are the ones to be the only ones to write about things anyway. So thank God for the Black press. We'll be able to go through some archives, be able to say, this is a historical landmark, you should visit here, and make sure that we stand up against these higher powers or these people with money so that they can't erase our history. But it's going to be up to us.
Absolutely. People have been my culture crew, Martinique, have been chatting on YouTube, and a lot of folks are talking about going back to Africa. What's the situation there, and what's the condition, the travel climate there for Africa, particularly for Nigeria, Ghana, especially when we're seeing some level of political uprising?
Yeah, so anywhere you go, you always need to know what's going on politically there. Okay. Like regardless if it's a war, you know, if there's some type of struggle, because you don't want to go during those times during civil unrest. However, as African Americans, I feel like we all need to go back to Africa. Where in Africa, that's going to be completely up to you. But there is a feeling that you get that you cannot get anywhere else from the moment you step onto what I call that sacred ground in the continent. All right. I always call it the continent. And every African American needs to experience that. You know, everybody else in the world can tell you where they're from. We're the only ones who can't really say I'm from here or there. But one thing that we do know is that we were all taken from the Gold Coast. So regardless if it's Ghana, regardless if it's Nigeria, you know, regardless if it's anywhere on the West, Togo, regardless of where it is, make sure that you get back there and you make that voyage back home. You will step foot in it. The people will look just like you, and probably somewhere down the line, they are some type of your cousins. I'm telling you. But that trip is so important for us to understand who we are. And there's no feeling like it. You know what I mean? I tell people all the time, I go to Ghana at the end of, in March, I go to Ghana, and that'll be my 4th time back because my mom wants to see now. You know what I mean? But it's literally, it's a rites of passage for all of us. And that's why, you know, Marcus Garvey, you know, what always happened. And there was such a movement during the 60s and 70s to go back so that you can experience it for yourself. So I think it is very important, but also, like I said, do your research. Just like right now, we're not traveling to Russia. You know what I mean? Like right now, a lot of people aren't even going to Turkey just because of the earthquakes. So just do your research before you go, but definitely go back to Africa. And it doesn't matter which part you're going to, but definitely get back to Africa. See those people who look like you.
Absolutely. And has your ability to travel abroad, has that deepened your love and respect for America in some way, or has it, you say, I'm
like, for America, no, absolutely not. I mean, I'm from America.
Right.
America is great, but I love learning about Black people everywhere else because I understand we were brought to America, but these are people who were brought somewhere different, and their story is so much like ours. And no, we might not be able to speak the same language, but we dance the same dance, we use the same seasoning, we use the same spices, so we know that we're connected through something that's so much bigger than what we can see. So has it heightened my love for America? No. But has it heightened my love for Black culture? Absolutely.
I know that you're being sought after at this point. So part of me is a little hesitant to say, do you want to put out your social media so how people can get more information?
Sure. I answer everybody's DMs. You can find me at Marty_San Diego and also at ABC Travel Green Book across social media.
This is phenomenal. Let me just say this, Martinique. This is phenomenal work. I'm so happy to have a sister like you in the space of being a part of the Black Travelers movement, and more importantly, pushing folks to have a better conversation about the value of the Black traveler. Take a look at this, folks. The ABC Travel Green Book. You want to just take a moment to describe this space here, Martinique? What people are going to check out?
So the ABC Travel Green Book and app is a resource that I put out so that you guys can find Black-owned businesses and Black communities on 6 out of 7 continents. So it's for us as travelers to be able to see people who look like us because we are virtually everywhere.
Absolutely. Talk to us a little bit about this Alliance of Black Travelers that you also serve as head of.
Yeah, so myself and 17 other co-founders started the Black Travel Alliance. It is specifically for Black travel industry professionals, and we created it so that we can level the playing field. You can learn more about us at blacktravelalliance.org. We give out scholarships. We make sure that Black travel professionals have the best jobs that they can have. We work with so many destinations so that we can preserve Black travel history, so that they can understand how to welcome more Black people into their destination. So if you're a Black travel professional, Black Travel Alliance is where you want to be.
There it is. And folks, again, you can follow Martinique on all social media platforms. She's doing a whole bunch of work to create a different space for Black folks and traveling. So you got Black Travel Alliance. You're serving as the creative leads for Nomadness. You're doing a lot of great work. And of course, you're an award-winning travel consultant, and that they can find you on all social media platforms. So Martinique, I appreciate you. Thank you for spending a few minutes with us here today. Congratulations on the Nat Geo special. And I'm looking forward to the series.
Me too, bro.
I'm looking forward to you being like Anthony Bourdain, just out there traveling.
Period. Me too. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, sis. Anytime. Thank you for joining us here on the Culture on the Black Star Network.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too, sis. All right, folks. Martinique Lewis doing some fantastic things for Black travelers. Make sure y'all check her out on all social media platforms. And, of course, make sure you check her out for her Nat Geo special, Black Travel Across America, on National Geographic. And it's streaming on Hulu as well. Definitely some good stuff. All right, folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's talk about what's going on the motherland. We're going to be checking in with our sister Johanna LeBlanc to get the latest developments about the Nigerian election and so much more. So stay with us. That conversation is up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Hey, Black, I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Pull up a chair. Take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for a Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Farajii Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Folks, welcome back to the show. For our final conversation today, I wanted to have a conversation with a sister that is very, very knowledgeable and familiar about what's going on across the water. So you have seen her on Roland Martin Unfiltered, and we're happy to have her providing some insight and her expertise and analysis about what's going on from places such as Haiti to Nigeria and so many other places. And more importantly, how do we continue to bridge the gap between what's going on with Black folks in this part of the world and on the other side? So we're happy to have our sister. She's an Haitian American attorney, and she's also a foreign policy advisor. And we're just happy to have her join us today here on the show, Sister Johanna LeBlanc. Johanna, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. First and foremost, Johanna, let's talk a little bit about what is going on with Nigeria and the state of the election situation there. There's been a lot of talk about trying to bring some level of stability to that part of that part of the continent. But what's the latest that you've been hearing about there about Nigeria?
So obviously, Nigeria held its elections, presidential and elections for state representatives across the country on the 25th. But there's been some major concerns about the possibility of voters being disfranchised. The Independent National Electoral Commission that is responsible for overseeing the election process has failed to come through for the people of Nigeria, has failed to ensuring that the election was indeed free, fair, transparent, and inclusive. Nigeria has a total of more than 177,000 polling stations across the country. And what we saw was a number of challenges. We saw things such as lack of transparency, the polling stations not opening on time, some level of violence at some of these polling stations, lack of electricity. Folks couldn't see they couldn't see their ballots appropriately. Folks who registered, when they showed up, they could not find their names in the system or whatnot. So these types of issues cause Nigerians to not have faith in the election results. And as of today, a president has not been announced for Nigeria. As you know, the country is the most populous country on the African continent, with a population of more than 200 million. And the average age in Nigeria is 18 years old.
Wow.
Which means that Nigeria has one of the youngest populations in the world. So there was a lot of excitement in this election because there were certain steps that were taken to ensure that the elections would be free, fair, transparent, and inclusive. So young people went out in numbers to vote. They were hoping for a better and brighter future, with a lot of them supporting the candidate, Peter Obi, who is part of the Labor Party. So as of today, again, results have not been announced. People are outraged, rightfully so. They believe that their votes did not matter. And some are even calling, even the main opposition party is calling for a redo of elections. So we'll see.
So there are, and take a look at this, folks. Nigeria's opposition parties call elections a sham and demand a new vote. And, considering there are widespread issues, from technical issues to getting people to those, to one of the 177,000 polls. But you got 93 million people who are registered to vote in Nigeria. Did I read that number correctly?
Absolutely, and that was indeed unprecedented, because I think that people were just excited about the opportunity to actually cast their vote and elect someone that would move the country forward. As we know, although Nigeria is the fifth largest oil producer of the world, Nigeria also has a relatively low GDP. When you look at the vast resources that exist in the country, there's also high unemployment rate for young people in the country. So people are really fed up. They want change. They want something new. So they were excited. They mobilized themselves, right, to be a part of this democratic process that they've been told, if you engage, if you act, if you do your part, then it will be a fair process. And now people across Nigeria are asking themselves, were we fooled? Because this does not seem to be a free, fair, nor transparent election.
And Johanna, what's making this election so historic outside of the voter turnout in terms of the larger vision for the country of Nigeria? Give us some insight onto that. Like what's the vision of the Labour Party versus the other parties, and more importantly, how is this so significant now?
Absolutely. I think that you saw a lot of people getting involved because of Peter Obi. I think some will say Peter Obi is the Obama of Nigeria in terms of his candidacy, his background, and his platform in creating structures and systems and opportunities for young people. And also he's relatively younger in comparison to his opponents, right? You have some of his opponents that are 80 years old plus, right? Peter Obi, I believe, is in his 60s. So people thought that this would be a new day, a new opportunity, a fresh face. I'm not saying a fresh face, because Peter Obi served as a governor in Nigeria once before. But people just got really excited for his vision and for his commitment to the youth in the country.
So this is also a departure from military dictatorship as well in the country, right? I was reading some history saying that it wasn't until, it's been since 1999 that Nigeria was under some level of military dictatorship. Can you give us some insight into that?
Sure. Well, obviously, with current President Buhari, there've been a lot of frustration with his leadership, especially when it comes to the economy, tackling Boko Haram, which, by the way, only exists in northern part of Nigeria. So if you're in Lagos, Abuja, and many other parts of Nigeria, you wouldn't have to worry about Boko Haram. But Boko Haram has been a concern for some Nigerians, especially those in the northern region, and they feel as though when it comes to addressing terrorism, when it comes to addressing food price, when it comes to addressing unemployment, and a vast of other issues, this administration has failed the people. For example, you have 50 Nigerian doctors leaving Nigeria per day. That is significant. And even here in the United States, you look at the diaspora. You see there's a large population of Nigerians, especially in places like the DMV area, Houston, Texas, and Nigerians. One thing about them is that they are incredibly resilient people. They are incredibly people filled with wisdom, and just want to make wherever they live a much better place, right? So Nigerians have fled their countries in drones, but when they go to other countries, we see how they excel at the highest level. I mean, doctors, lawyers, engineer, in music, right? And we see how Nigerian music, Afrobeats, has essentially dominated the entertainment industry in America and across the globe. So there is enormous potential when it comes to the people of Nigeria who are living in Nigeria. But unfortunately, because of the lack of structure, failed government, like so many other developing nations across the world, people have not been able to fully realize their full potential while living in the country. But when they're outside of Nigeria, they thrive to the maximum.
Now, Johanna, we got about a minute and a half before we take our next pause, but I want you to kind of give us some insight. You are a foreign policy advisor. You do the work of making sure that our congressional leaders think more in terms of how we can create and build relationships that are in the best interest of not just America, but also that's in the best interest of countries like Nigeria. But when we look at what's going on with, the changes of Nigeria, and then you look at what's going on with Black people, Black America in this country, do you see any similarities in this in the struggle?
Absolutely, there are significant similarities, and what I can tell you is that for Black people in general, for us to truly reach economic prosperity, the unification of the Black race is a must. So whether you are on the African continent, in the Caribbean, or right here in America, we are one. We have the same struggles. We are all fighting the same structural challenges. So the sooner that we realize that and unite, yes, we are different in ways. Some of our cultures are different, right? There are some differences, but we are a lot more similar than we think. So the unification of the Black race is a must in order for us to reach true liberation.
So so we got to take a quick pause, but when we come forward, I want us to continue to have this part of the conversation, Johanna, because, seeing how the Biden-Harris administration is trying to, I guess, redefine its relationship with a number of African countries, including Nigeria, and then seeing about the state of Black America as it is right now, I'm trying to figure out how does this all play out. And so I'm going to tap into your foreign policy brain to give us some insight as to how do we make sure that Black America can gain something from this relationship. Is it for us to have more Black folks from America to travel to Nigeria to create individual things, or should we start to have more deeper conversations about, setting up institutional efforts, all of that. So I want us to kind of get a little bit more into that once we come back from the break. Folks, we've been talking to Johanna LeBlanc. She is Haitian American attorney. She is also a foreign policy advisor, and she's doing the great work of giving us some insight today as to what we're seeing on the motherland and on the continent, especially in the country of Nigeria. And we're going to talk to her about some other things as well. So join us in a conversation. Post your comments in the chat as we're streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, at Black Star Network, and of course on Amazon News. Stay with us. More with Johanna in a little bit, right here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All the momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about Blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause to long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is roland@rolandsmartin.com.
Folks, welcome back to the show. We've been talking to Johanna LeBlanc, who is an attorney as well as a foreign policy advisor, and she's here to give us some insight onto the latest developments in the election of Nigeria, where they still have not determined who will be the winner. And there are a number of people in the country of Nigeria who are just looking at the whole election process between the Labour Party and the PDP to be one of a sham, and feel like that there needs to be some transparency and, most importantly, some accountability. So we've been talking to Johanna about that. But we also want to get her take on the larger conversation about Black America, connecting Black America to the motherland, and what that will require. Johanna, again, thank you so much for your insight and being a part of the conversation. So back in December, I mean, you said prior to the pause that there are a lot of similarities in the struggle of Black America and what you're seeing in the continent, in the country of Nigeria. That even though we might have some cultural differences, that we're still fighting against the same system. And I'm always curious as to why, you know, like certain things aren't happening for Black people. I think that here in Black America, you're seeing it, you're feeling it, you're experiencing it just as much as we are. This is the right time for us to have some very, very important conversations about bridging the gap between Black folks here and Black folks there. But it still seems to be cluttered with a lot of other stuff, whether it's from the systems of white supremacy or even our own personal attitudes that we have, that Black folks have about Africans and Africans have about Black Americans, right? So I want to know, how do we break through that? How do we penetrate through all of that clutter to get to a place of brotherhood and unity?
I think first and foremost, it starts with education, right? And which is why when you have states like Florida and even in the state of Virginia, where they're trying to prevent students from learning about African-American history, it is appalling. And we should all be outraged, because of people who do not know where they are from, who do not know their history, will not know where they are going.
Facts.
We need to understand our connection to the motherland. I don't care who you are. If you're Black, you're African. Okay. So I think it's important that we start there. And also, we need to also think about investing beyond these 50 states here in America. Because when we look at the data as it relates to Black wealth in this country is rather daunting. Yes, there are some of us individually who are doing well, but collectively as a people, we have some dire issues.
Yeah.
When it comes to home ownership, when it comes to just wealth building in general, the numbers are very low. So we need to start looking at alternatives to building wealth for ourselves. And one of the places we should be looking at is the African continent. Remember when Donald Trump said his friends go to Africa poor and they come back rich? And we all laughed at that comment. Mm-hmm. Well, it's true. There are enormous opportunities on the African continent while we're also helping with the redevelopment of the motherland. For example, that Africa has the African Continental Free Trade Area, which is a trading law that allows trading within African countries, and that is unprecedented. It had never happened before. We were used to seeing AGOA, which is, trade African countries trading with the United States, but for the first time, you have a system, you have a legal instrument in place for African countries to trade with other African countries, and this is where the African Americans could come in and start engage in commerce across the African continent to build wealth. So in areas like infrastructure, poultry, I mean, you name it, every sector that you could think of, you could invest in. When it comes to housing, the population across Africa is growing, and it's growing rapidly. Like I said earlier, Nigeria, the most populous country on the African continent, and it is predicted at some point that the number of people living in Nigeria will be just as much as the number of people living in China, if not more, right?
Yeah.
So there's going to be a housing shortage, right? And those homes are going to need or will need to be built, right? So there is an enormous opportunity for African Americans to get engaged and get involved. And we saw in December, the President Biden hosted the U.S. Africa Summit. In a way to re-engage the African continent, because we saw that the African continent, they're forging alliances with Russia, with China, with other nations that could serve their economic interest much better. And I think that from a broader conversation, the administration has to focus more on the economic development of countries across the African continent versus simply humanitarian assistance.
So I was going to get your take on that. When we saw that happening back in December, where the president called those 40 plus African leaders to the table and said, look, we wanted to do it. It felt a little weird because it was like, excuse me, one country calling 48 other people to the table. And it's like, what happened to the other folks, Mr. President? But the point is, to have that conversation and talking about it. And I've heard, and I want to get your take very quickly, Johanna, I've heard some people say it was that particular summit was not substantive enough to really open up the conversation or take the conversation about Africa, United States unity to the next level. Did you feel that? Do you feel that way? Or do you feel like, there was some good that came out of that discussion?
I attended the summit. I attended many of the events as an internationalist. But what I can tell you is that I think it's a step in the right direction. Okay. There's a lot more that could be done, but I think that the Biden administration has some good people when it comes to foreign policy who really understand the importance of the continent as a strategic partner, and not just as a continent, as we have historically seen, that is thought of a handout, right? When we think of humanitarian assistance, it is a continent that, with the right structure, with the right people at the table, with the right foreign policy agenda, it could be a win-win for everyone, right? And so one of the things that the leaders from these countries discuss greatly is that historically the relationship has been one-sided, right? But I think it's also an opportunity for African governments to come to the table with, what are their legislative priorities? What do they want out of this relationship, right? And come to the table and see, what does the United States want from this relationship? And then have that discussion and make sure that it is, what they want, what they need are properly executed.
We have a couple of moments left, Johanna, and I wanted to kind of get your thoughts in terms of, what should be the next step? What is the call to action for Black America as it relates to what's going on in Nigeria, and which is in general what's going on the continent? Because I know there are a lot of Black folks in this country that have, I just had a segment before. We talked about traveling there. We talked about, possibly relocating there as things get even more crazier in this part of the world. I mean, there, a lot of us are growing into our level of consciousness. So Pan-Africanism, Black nationalism has influenced some people to take their steps to the motherland. So what should the next step be for us?
I think the next step is really to educate ourselves on the continent, what it is, what it's not, right? Yes, granted that we see the beautiful pictures of Africa on social media, some really nice places to hang out, to have fun. We see great infrastructure. We see a lot of positive coming out of the African continent. But there are also some dire challenges impacting Africans on the continent. And when you're talking about African Americans moving to the continent, there needs to be a lot more education on expectations, a lot of education on culture, a lot of education on self-identity and Pan-Africanism and what it is and what it's not.
A lot of education. Well, you know what? I'm here for it, Johanna. You're doing a fantastic job. We see you on Roland Martin Unfiltered. We know that you bring a lot to the table. I would love to bring you back once we get a better sense of which party is going to be the ruling party for Nigeria. Once that word comes out, we would love to bring you back on, and then you could talk to us about the implications and what the next steps will be for the country of Nigeria. But I appreciate you for coming on today. We truly, truly thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Johanna LeBlanc, who is a foreign policy advisor as well as an attorney, and she is just giving us all that we need to know to talk about what's going on the motherland. Folks, thank you so much. Man, our time has been very, very well spent. I want to thank my very my dope guest of Johanna LeBlanc, as well as Martinique Lewis. Make sure y'all check out Black Travel Across America, her Nat Geo special for Martinique. So that should be really good. And I want to thank my crew, my man Joel, my guy King Keenan, and of course Ariel, and as well as my control room for making today's show such a fantastic show. I hope you enjoyed the conversations that we had here today. Folks, it is the final day of Black History Month. So if you haven't kind of gotten to a space of, reflecting, and you haven't gotten to a space of just thinking about, our history, folks, it is time for us to do so. And more importantly, to invest. You can invest with Black Star Network. You can invest with your local, with any institution, nonprofit organization. But let's use this last day to become reactivated, and more importantly, to renew our commitment to our people. Now, again, we know that Black history is 365 days of the year, but let's make Black History Month a time of action and not just a time of learning about our history. Let it be a time where we say to ourselves, enough is enough. I'm going to do something different for my people, and let it start from Black History Month. We can use this at the beginning of a new year, however you want to do it. My hope is that we can become recommitted to the liberation and to the struggle of Black folks in this country, and more importantly, to continue to support spaces and platforms that give us the opportunity to talk about these things. So if you haven't had a chance, make sure y'all check us out at blackstarnetwork.com. You can go to our website today, download the app for free on all your devices. And of course, we ask for your financial support because every dollar and cent makes a difference. So go to our website today at blackstarnetwork.com. Follow us on all social media platforms and stay with us as we post some dope content coming from a variety of different spaces to help us stay informed about what's going on at home and abroad. Also, make sure y'all follow me, Farajii Muhammad, The Real Farajii, on Twitter, at Farajii and The Real Farajii. You can find me at Farajii on Twitter, The Real Farajii on Instagram. I'd love to connect with you. Stay tuned up next. Make sure y'all tune in for that. But as always, remember this: never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we will talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Talk to you soon. Have a great afternoon and evening. Peace.